Hello and welcome again to our look at the election campaign as it unrolls in Bendigo. With the absence of Keith Sutherland still holidaying overseas, we're joined again today by Anthony Radford. Welcome, Anthony.
Thanks, Dennis.
Anthony, we lamented the fact last week a little that there hadn't been a lot of action on the local scene. We've had a handful of national profile type policies hit town, and in most cases, from what I've seen, sort of be here for a couple of hours and head out of town again. Yep. And I know they're all go in a campaign. But at least this week, there's been a bit of dust flying for a different reason, with both Lisa Chesters and Megan Purcell, the Liberal candidate, taking the gloves off a bit in terms of the NBN. And I looked at what I read and I thought, well, I saw both press releases and they can't both be right, is what I looked at and thought. Where do you see the NBN as an issue here in Bendigo?
Well, it's a really good issue here, and I'm really happy that we've finally got one that we can sink our teeth to, and I'm really happy, as I mentioned last week, that it's not asylum seekers or climate change. And it's an important one. It's an important one not necessarily so that you can download, Game of Thrones faster, but so you can, for our health. We've actually been, and our health system, ILOD and Mally, the organisation that was set up to lobby for the NBN in Bendigo, has actually been at the forefront of all this over time. The problem is they've been at the forefront of this for about 6 years now, and nothing's happened. And both sides of politics are to blame here. Whilst the Liberal Party has decimated the plans of what was initially going to be a world-class, future-proof system, the Labor Party was slow in rolling it out as well, for whatever reason. And so we find ourselves in a situation now where we're behind Shepparton, we're behind Ballarat.
Well, Keith, I can tell you didn't know anyway, Keith Sutherland is absolutely furious that for whatever reason, and it may well be a layer or a combination of reasons, Bendigo appears to be caught with its pants down, effectively, when you look at what's happened with Shepparton and Ballarat. But it's interesting you mentioned that too, because Keith and I lock horns on this issue a lot. And you hear you mention that about, the coalition currently unravelling what was put forward as a great plan. If I go back, from the bit of research I've done, the original thing put forward, the original vision was in 2007 by the Rudd camp. And at that time, they were suggesting that the government would only have to kick in about $5 billion to a total rollout cost of about $15 billion to create what I can quote it actually, they called it a super fast national broadband network for $15 billion, with government putting up only $4.7 billion. I mean, how we've come a long way from there.
Well, we've got the Labor promise ended up being $45 billion.
That's right.
And by 2021, the Liberal Party policy, I think it was, the man who, according to Tony Abbott, invented the internet in Australia, Malcolm Turnbull, promising to do the job for less. As it turns out, his current promise is for $59 billion by 2020. So more than Labor's proposal a year earlier. However, Labor's proposal might not have been $45 billion. Now it may have been more than that, which is fine.
And I think to some extent, Anthony, even with what's happening here, we've got two quality candidates, I think, in Megan Purcell and Lisa Chesters. I can only see good value in both of them, I think, in terms of their level of commitment and the passion and I guess the energy they seem to have for the job, depending on who ends up with the job after the election. But to some extent, I look at this whole NBN equation and I wonder whether it was a bit like promising a kid a holiday for him and all his mates in Disneyland for his 5th birthday, when in fact he ended up at a bloody Haxdale camp, fishing at Epilogue. Because I think that the original vision was so big and grand and so was going to cost so little that wherever you go these days, you're running into potholes, whether it's asbestos in Telstra bloody pits that cause a lot of trouble. I mean, wherever you go, the original vision was so really unrealistic that we're faced with disappointment every step of the way.
Yeah, but it was designed with a future in mind. And I think when you design something with a future in mind, you're always going to have extensions, you're always going to run into problems. But that's not a reason not to do it. And you talk about Lake Epilogue. Ironically, you can get better NBN, or you can actually get NBN in the middle of Lake Epilogue.
I have heard people say that.
You can't in the middle of Bendigo. You can't in the middle of Eagle Hawk. You can't in my house. I live 50 metres from a school, and the latest information I got was, sorry, there is no idea when you're going to be connected. So, and if we lived in Ballarat, we would be saying what a great idea this was. the former member for Bendigo, Steve Gibbons, and this is something that I believe the person who told me this should know this to be true. So I'm going to state that. Haven't corroborated it, but I doubt it's wrong. Stephen Conroy was the minister responsible at the time for rolling out the NBN.
We had Stephen Conroy in here, yes.
Yep, in the early stages. Ballarat in mid-2014 had half its CBD pretty much rolled out fibre to the home or fibre to the business, and most of it's all done by now. Catherine King was a factional, the member for Ballarat was a factional ally of Stephen Conroy. Steve Gibbons wasn't a factional ally of anybody. Magically, Ballarat got done before Bendigo. If Bendigo had have got done by then, we would be fine. We'd have it in pretty much every street in Bendigo now, not just this fibre to the node and outdated copper to the home, but we're talking fibre to the home throughout most of the CBD, pretty much every business in town and most homes in town. So this is, once again, it's not just the Liberal Party who stuffed this up. The Labor Party have rightly stuffed this up at the start.
And the factional point you make, whilst I take your point, in relation to Conroy's faction versus, Steve being, what I'd pat Steve on the back for being independent, because I think you get, my own personal view is, that's how it should be, rather than in the best interest of the electorate, rather than a faction. But both parties are guilty of that, and we've seen that with the way the Abbott-Turnbull thing has played out, with any number of ministerial people and staffers, I might say, although I'm doing some interesting reading of columns. Very clearly, personalities play a big role, and factional ideas and philosophies play a big role in forming subgroups within what is tantamount, or supposedly presented to the public as being a united front political party, when in fact there may be 3, 4, 5 or 6 factions in there.
No, I had a little bit to do with student politics in the day, and they were ridiculously faction. There was remarkable. You couldn't do anything. You were more at war with your own party than you were with the opposition. We had situations there where we were aligned with certain factions of certain political parties who were at war with other senior factions of senior political parties, and if you found out, they found out, and it was just horrific. That's how it operated at every single level at that stage of the Labor Party.
Well, that may well explain to some extent why Bendigo has been left sitting here on the side of the road while Ballarat and Shepparton have gone flying past in Ferraris. At the same time, though, where do we sit in terms of what both these candidates are claiming at the moment? One's claiming to have worked a butt off to make sure that the latest boost, if you like, out the Epilogue way, is the result of all the hard work and all the effort she's put in. And the other one's saying, well, I managed to get it to happen now just before the election, and it'll in fact happen just before we vote. Who's right and who's wrong on this one, or is that a too hard a question? Because I don't want to put you on a spot.
Yeah, no, that's fine. The stuff out at Epilogue and Huntley North and through the Mount Camel Ranges there has been going on for a long, long time. In fact, if you looked at the rollout map, those towns were already covered.
Well, it was a VCAT thing that tipped
of course.
it over.
It was a planning issue. It had nothing to do with politics at the end of the day, and so all of a sudden being magically turned on despite the VCAT appeals, fascinating in itself. But this was a real political issue for Megan Purcell and for the Liberal Party, basically because these structures were there. It was built. It was ready to go. All you had to do was flick the switch.
And it had been there for quite some time as well.
For quite some time. Now, I'm a regular at George's Bakehouse in Huntley, and up until recently, he had to get, when you went in to buy your magnificent garlic prawn pie, you went in there and you paid with FPOS. These staff had to take the FPOS machine, cordless one, take it to a corner of the shop near a window, hold it up with their left leg, stick their tongue out and hope to God it worked. Now, they've finally rectified this through getting some special needs sort of stuff. But this is the sort of stuff the business is up that way. Now, Huntley's been classed as a growing area for a long time. And all of a sudden, magically this is an issue now. Well, it's only satellite NBN. It's not fibre to the home unless you're in one of those brand new estates where they're actually building into the price of your home.
How important an issue is it going to be for your average Bendigo voter coming to the election? I mean, this is probably one of the reddest hot issues that they've managed to come up with between the two of them to lock horns on, or anyway. How big an issue is it going to be for the average Bendigo punter when they line up to vote a couple of days after these things get turned on?
Well, in terms of big picture, yes. It's one of those issues where the 90% of homes have an internet, so 90% of people have tried to download something, watch something, look at YouTube, all those sort of things, and berated it. I live in, as I said, 50 metres from a school, and up until recently, I had less than 1 megabyte per second.
How?
Less than 1 megabyte per second. I've had to pay extra pay extra per month to get up to 7, sometimes 6 megabytes per second. The internet, the Labor's plan for the NBN was 1 gig per second, which was we're talking Lord of the Rings downloaded in about 5 minutes, in about 30 seconds. But it's not about individual homes. Whilst that's important, I'm sure, the key to this whole thing in terms of country areas, I saw a documentary about 6 or 7 years ago. I think it was in America, and there was a surgeon in Seattle. And he was in a high-rise building in Seattle. He was on about the 4th or 5th floor. And his office, he had a desk at one end of his office, and about 10 metres away on the other wall of his office was a massive screen. And he was a surgeon, or a doctor of some kind. I think he was a surgeon. And he looked at his watch and he said, okay, hang on a minute. And he got up from talking to this person, walked over to the wall, dialed in his computer, up popped a live operation going on the East Coast. Right, of America. Now he was looking at this screen. He put these little special gloves on, and he was able to operate the machinery in real time on the other side of America. He looked at the screen, saw which was a live feed, saw a machine that was facing the wrong way. He couldn't see it. Touched it, span it around, and up popped the data on his screen.
How long ago did you see this?
This is probably 5 or 6 years ago. So he's gone and he's done this. He's done this thing, he sat down, he's done whatever he needed to do. Yep, cheers mate, okay, the guy's actually in the operation theatre, sewed him up, all good. Sat down, said, I've got another one of those in 20 minutes. And the journo asked him, what happens if the feed cuts out?
Good question.
What happens if the feed cuts out?
Yes, that'd be my life.
And he said, look, there's obviously surgeons there who can take over and stabilise if need be at the time. But he said a nuclear bomb would have to drop simultaneously on my office and the operating theatre for that to happen.
Gee.
This is what NBN Australia is missing out on. This is the sort of thing that says if you wrap your car around a tree at Axedale on a rainy Friday night and it's too risky to fly you to the Alfred, we can put you here at our brand new hospital, we can have you here, and within a minute or 2 minutes of getting out of the ambulance, you're being operated on by the best microsurgeon in the country, by the best brain surgeon in the country, if not the world, from Melbourne. So this is the sort of stuff that we're missing out on.
So if the average punter is not really pumped up about this issue, then there's a lot of reasons to be pumped up about it, whether it's you or someone you love.
Plus the business opportunities. Imagine how many businesses we can encourage to come to Bendigo from Melbourne if we could say that you could run your entire worldwide operation from
geography is no longer an issue, and on a global level as well. Moving on to another issue, Radders, I noticed Lisa Chester's announced too, I think from memory it's $21 million that she's pledging that she's been able to secure from the Labor Party, should they win government, to go toward the ABC basically, as she sort of suggested, to boost the coverage of women's sport in particular, and she used the local Bendigo Spirit as an example. Now, I look at that and I think, well, good on her on one hand, that's fair enough, better than them having no coverage at all, and they've done a fantastic job up there, no doubt about that. But at the same time, I look at it and I think, well, I see it as a missed opportunity. Why would you throw $20 million plus at the ABC when a lot of people would argue that they're already fat and don't, like in this instance, to do a game up there, they're going to drive in a big truck from Melbourne with a heap of people from Melbourne, technicians and camera people, and do the job and then leave here and go somewhere else. When you've got technology, and I know I'm blowing my own trumpet here, like Bendigo IPTV that's innovative, I'm sick of hearing whether it's Turnbull or Shorten, whoever the hell it is, or their communications ministers, talking about the innovation nation. Give me a break. When they get an opportunity, what do? Same thing they would have done 30, 40 years ago, throw it at the ABC to provide the coverage. I don't get it.
Yep, and that's great. And I have a little vested interest in that. I volunteered my time for the Bendigo Spirit. I've volunteered my time, and the same reason I volunteer my time is the same reason why I think this is a good idea, is that this is the only option we've got. You're right, if we had a decent NBN connection, if we had a decent internet connection, and we would be able to do that. I know the radio guys who broadcast over the internet take up a lot of the space. I sit there on my phone trying to upload videos to the WNBL, and I can't do it.
In fairness, in saying that though, and I don't know, I perhaps don't know this issue as well as you do, given that you've been involved up there, which I wasn't aware of. But from my understanding of it, the ABC haven't even said, okay, folks, get ready to sit back with a cup of coffee and watch the game at home, or a cold drink or whatever. On the ABC, it's highly likely that a lot of this content, I think they're talking 500 hours worth roughly, that this budget will allow for, with a focus on women's sport. A lot of that may well find its way to iView, which is exactly what we would have been doing anyway, except we would have been doing it with local people here, learning to be camera people, learning to be editors, switchers, vision switchers, mixers, audio operators, lighting. I just think, I look at it and I shake my head, and I don't care which party. I'm not having a shot at Lisa Chester's, she's come up with this idea, good luck to her. I'm saying that both parties talk about Innovation Nation and haven't got a clue when it comes to putting it in practice.
No, and this is a national promise. It's not just a Bendigo promise.
That's right.
So it's more than just the Bendigo spirit. I guess if it was an extra 500 grand a year just for the Bendigo spirit, if we broke it down, then we could make that happen. And that's fantastic. But the real key for me for this policy for Bendigo, and once again I'm being selfish about Bendigo, is that
nothing wrong with that.
No, is that we need. I look at this as a dad. I've got two daughters who are mad about basketball, and they can, if they're any good, they can grow up knowing that they can play at the highest level of basketball, the second highest, best competition in the world, without moving from Bendigo. So you want to encourage people to Bendigo. You want to encourage families to move to Bendigo. Firstly, you can watch these fantastic athletes going around, some of the best in the world, for $10, $20, cheap as chips. Secondly, what happens if they're playing at Townsville? What happens if they're playing in Perth? Well, I don't know. I won't be able to see that now. I've got to look at a dodgy internet connection that uploads every now and again.
You don't get the argument from me there. I'm just suggesting that the money could have been invested,
or
even a portion of it elsewhere. But that's another story. Look, we've hit our 20-minute mark. I can't believe the 20 minutes has gone already, but I can't thank you enough, Anthony, for giving up your time to come in here. You talk about volunteering up at Bendigo Spirit. You volunteer here as well. I appreciate it. And particularly with Keith away, there's a hell of a lot happening, and things are only going to heat up between now and the 2nd of July, whatever it is, for the federal election. Look forward to picking your brains again over the next week or so.
Thanks, Dennis.
Thanks for joining us today, and we'll look forward to seeing you again next week.